So the idea of getting a palette list is really just to make sure that the colors you're using in your projects fit together well. Sometimes, if you're not using a set of colors that fit together really well, you end up being in a position where it doesn't feel right, and you don't know why. But having a palette list helps bring everything together.
Yeah.
So I'm just using low spec here as an example. This is where we're going to get our information from. However, you can get your information from anywhere. And one of the issues that we're going to come across straight away is the fact that where you go to get your information, your color palette may vary. So there will be scope here for you have to alter your Python to actually bring those colors in. And towards the end, I'll go through a couple of different ways that you could do that. With everything, when it comes to any bringing in external information, it's all about sanitizing that data first before you can do any operations on it. So I'm going to do some sanitization to begin with, and then we'll start processing. And of course, you should be able to apply that to other bits of information as they come in. I'm going to pick a color palette with maybe 16 colors. This one here, this summer breeze. No, wait a minute, is there an autumn one? Let's search for autumn.
Actually, I believe that's Sumer breeze, like the breeze you get in the Sumer region in Mesopotamia.
Okay. Would it be called fall? Do you reckon I'm going to get more results for fall?
I would just look for a 16 color palette, unless you want to use the one I've been using.
Autumn Comfort 18. I could do with some comfort. That's got 18 colors in it. Let's have a closer look at this. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can go and grab the colors from here. We could literally just highlight all of these here and copy them, or we could go ahead and download them. Now, I'm actually going to do both so we can see a couple of different ways of sanitizing data. Really useful being able to do that. So I've just copied that, and I'm going to go over into Blender. Wherever Blender is, that's going to be quicker. There we go, new scene. And I'm going to go straight away over to my scripting and create a new script. And then we can name it something. Let's call it Hex to Color. Now, I'm going to spell color in the American way because when I've been playing around with this in the past, I've I've had issues where I spell color the English way, and then when I'm in code, it needs to be spelt the American way, which causes no end of confusion. So I'm going to use the American spelling. Now, I'm going to have this list, but I need to sanitize the data. There are a couple of ways that we could do this, but in this particular case, I'm going to capture this entire thing as a string. So I'm going to call this colors. We might as well start off with something like that. So we've got a variable called colors. Now, I don't want to have to put these into do any additional formatting on it. So I'm going to use three apostrophes either side, and then everything will be captured as a string. If we don't do that, it won't include these multiple lines here. The other thing that I want to do is make sure that I can test as I go and play around with things. So I want to change my layout here a little. On Windows, what we can do is go to Window and toggle System Console. And what that will do is it will open up the System Console, and we can check when we run our code what's happening. And we can put in print statements to make sure the values we're getting are the ones that we are expecting. Now, this won't work on Linux and this won't work on Mac. In order to get this working on Linux and Mac to get the system console, you actually have to launch Blender from the terminal in order to do that. And I believe on Mac you can actually create an alias as well, and then just click on the alias, and then Blender will launch with the console. I'm not going to go through the details of doing that right now because I'm on a Windows system and I can't do that. But what I will do is on my channel, I'm planning on breaking this down just a little bit further and giving some more detailed explanation. And I'll paste a link to my channel in a bit to
Now,
do
just
that.
because it's traditional, Michael, have you considered switching to Linux?
That won't help.
Okay.
The unfortunate truth is that when you're dealing with everybody, you out there, it's likely that you're using a PC. So this will be primarily PC based, and most of this actually will work across all platforms. A couple of OS commands later on, if we go and open up a file to read, that will be slightly different per operating system. Um, We may or may not touch that. If we've got time, we might look at it. If
I mean,
not,
it's a problem you're always going to run unless you can afford to re-record every video on multiple operating systems. It was more because I always ask you that, and you always answer, "It won't help." So I thought it'd be fun to do.
gotcha. In this particular case, you can actually use some code to do that, but I don't know the code specifically, so and it's not in my notes, so I'm not going to use that bit. But anyway, let's go ahead and make sure that we can see both of these bits, and then move this across. So this is a new feature in from Windows 10 onwards, I think, that you can do a half screen and then just pull it to one side. If I've blown up the text quite a bit here, and I'm going to do the same over on this side so that we can easily read. I might have to adjust this from time to time to make sure that it fits properly as we go through, so we can read it easily. But there we go. I think we can read everything there. And now if I print out the colors variable that we've got there, what we should be able to see when we run this is all of the colors. Excellent.
Question from Jenny: is colors a built-in keyword?
No. If it was a built-in keyword, it would be highlighted. I'm going to try and avoid built-in keywords where possible. For instance, if you wanted to be absolutely sure, you could call this colors from web, would be a great example. Now, ideally, this would all be in a separate file, and then we can import it in. In fact, if we've got time at the end, I will adjust the code so we have a look at that.
Yeah, and it's probably a good practice when you guys are doing something like this to call it something like hex colors or hex codes or colors
Yeah.
from web, because colors can be quite, I mean, you're going to be dealing with colors as an input and an output.
Exactly. And that might get a bit confusing later on when you're naming things. In this particular case, I'm going to just name things long format. So even if it ends up quite a long variable name, I just want to be clear at this point in time. Also, when we get to separating out these RGB values, I'll also be going through things slowly, not necessarily optimally, but you can see the individual steps that we're going through. So we're already 20 lines of code in. Okay, really, we're only 2 lines of code. We're assigning this and then printing it. We just got it on multiple lines. And again, I don't want to have to go through the process of sanitizing this. You can if you want to, and that can help things out later on, especially if you're bringing in from different sites. Sometimes a bit of manual changing around rather than trying to code in for each individual scenario, it's a lot quicker. So I want to put these colors somewhere. I can't just leave them like this. So I think it's best if we take these and add them to a list. In the end, what Blender will be wanting, if we go down to our materials tab, we'll have a look at changing this base color and the one without nodes. But what it will be expecting in this hex value here, actually expects red, green, blue, and alpha. So we'll have to add an alpha in, even if it's not explicit there. But when we're inputting these values, the only way we can actually input them is normalized values, so between 0 and 1 of R, G, and B. And we're also going to have to make sure that it is in linear space rather than sRGB, which is a bit of fun that we'll get to later on. So we printed out the colors to the web. The next thing that we need to do is have a look through all of these and try and separate them out. And there's a various ways of how we can do this, but there are some string operations that we can use on our code here and just bring them straight in. So what we can do here, I'm just having a look at my notes to see which way would be best to approach this at the moment. Yeah, I think what we can do here is just bring them in as a list. So if we go ahead and create a new list, so list of hex values. I'm running out of space here. Let's make this full screen here. If you want to know how to make things full screen, what you can do is Control and Space. I'll probably do that multiple times if I need to enter different areas of Blender just to keep things easy enough to read. And hopefully, just a bit of report back. Is this readable on stream? Do we need to have it larger, or is it okay for everybody?
It seems to be readable to me, but I'll see if people get complaining about it.
Yeah, brilliant. Perfect.
I mean, I say it seems to be readable. I can clearly read it. I don't know why I put the word seems in there. It seems to be readable, but my brain won't let me read. So
Okay, so there are a couple of ways in which we can sort of split a line as we go through. So what we can do here is something else actually with this here. We can go list a value of hexes. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this colors from web, which is a string. And if you press tab, it will autofill if it already exists in your script. That's important. Otherwise, it won't automatically go there. And we need a string operation. And I believe we can split based upon a particular value. I'm just trying to remember what the this is the thing, you know, if you don't know something, you can easily look it up. I'm trying to remember it and I can't. Split lines, I think. No, not split lines. This is the
to
thing.
answer your earlier question, Tinkerer says it's pretty readable. Foreigner says not really, but they're on mobile in an area with bad bandwidth, so that's not on us.
Yeah, if the web, yeah, if it's already there's not much I can do about that. I can make it a little bit larger. I can go ahead and do that. I don't mind doing that.
We could just invite people around to your house.
Yeah, Python party, and that's alliteration.
I think you need 3 things for it to be alliteration. Otherwise, it's just coincidence.
You reckon?
You can't have a pattern of 2 data points.
No, I think you could.
No.
Okay.
Once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is enemy action.
Okay, so I believe what I can do here, if I hope I've got the syntax right, but I believe I can split this string every time there is a hash mark, which is ideal for this particular situation because that's what basically splits everything along here. And then straight after this, again for testing, I'll be doing lots of this as we go. I'm going to print out my colors from web. And I'm going to mute this one at the top. And in order to do that, comment it out. We're going to put a hash symbol at the beginning, something to watch out for if your information, if your values here contain a hash. That's why we need to put it inside these triple quotes. You can also do that very quickly by control and /. That will do the entire. That will comment out the entire line.
Vertex Rage is saying that the thumbnail for the live stream is awesome. So well done, Mikey. That was all, Mikey. Now, why are you printing colors from web and not list from hex values? I think I've missed something.
You're absolutely right.
Yay! I teach coding.
This is why it's great to have there. So